Hello, music lovers. Welcome to Full Record Jacket with Phil and Ben.
That's me. Here.
There he is over there. Now, Ben, of course, is our resident Oasis superfan, and it was his idea to do this particular show where we focus on one album. And it's an album that's been a little bit neglected by people. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes. Well, I don't know, actually. I think it's more talked about than the final album, Dig Out Your Soul, which I was listening to today, which I forgot how mega it was. Some proper beats going down on that. But yeah, we're talking about standing on the shoulder of giants. The fourth Oasis album, and the first that didn't include Bonehead and Gwigsy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that was the other thing about this, because, of course, it was a change in producer, a bit of a change in sound from the first three albums. Yeah. And, of course, a bit of a change in lineup as well. Now, have you got it there? You got a vinyl? Now, that's not... Did it come out on vinyl in the year 2000?
It did, yes. Very expensive to buy on vinyl. Probably wasn't expensive to buy it then. It is now. But I think this is the 2016 repress or something like that. I think it might have been re-released in 2009 on vinyl as well. But I'm sure this one is from 2016.
Now that artwork is worth talking about, because this, when obviously they changed the logo. It came out in 2000. The classic,
Decca
what do you call
style.
It? That Decca style, the black background and the white Oasis print.
Yeah,
they changed it for that album. I think did they go back again after that? I think they did.
No, they went for a sort of a different variation of this.
Right.
But I prefer people shouldn't change their logos. Adidas tried it. It didn't work. I don't mind this logo. It's not as good. It's not as iconic as that Decca one. Yeah.
I think maybe I quite like the use of that on the front. It fits in well with that image, but maybe they should have still stuck with the old logo somewhere else as well.
Yeah,
on the back or something.
I personally think that they probably didn't have to have this as big. They could have still had the Oasis logo down here, because on all the other albums it's quite small.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you probably didn't even need to title it. You could have just had that cover in a way. I know What's the Story, Morning Glory's got it across it, definitely maybe. So I suppose you could have had this title still here. But yeah, shot from, was it 500th and 5th Avenue or something like that?
The 505th Avenue building. Yeah, that's the one. Yes. We looked it up the other day, but I did recognise that building. It's sort of like the Empire State Building's sibling building, but what you see there is the view. If you want to be a New York geek, that's the view south down Manhattan, and you can see there on Fifth Avenue. You can
see the Twin Towers in here.
Twin Towers are there, and there's the Empire State Building. And on the back, it carries on.
It does, yeah. I think they took a frame every half hour over 18 hours. I think that's what they did with it. And if you can see, just down here, there's some kids playing football, which I think was superimposed on there, which ends up being...
I've got it, look.
Of the Go Let It Out single.
Isn't that clever? And then they also did, we'll talk about the singles a bit later on, but then they did the Who Feels Love was the next single, and they look in the shades, you've got the same image. Isn't that clever?
And then if you look at the last one.
Oh, the last one, here we go. This is
Sunday Morning Call.
Here we go.
It's in the background in the window.
Oh, look, isn't that? Yeah. So there was some real joined up thinking going on there, wasn't
it? Yeah, because it wasn't Brian Cannon that did this, and I know Brian Cannon had done all the artwork beforehand. He is the one who wrote Definitely Maybe. It's his handwriting that is the font for Definitely Maybe, which I'm thinking of purchasing. He sells them. You can buy it.
Oh, actually written by him. Okay.
Written by him. It's all framed by Microdot, etc. But yeah, this was done. I don't know who the artist was who took this, but I think Brian Cannon probably got fed up with hand clapping on backing tracks, etc.
So what was the reason for New York being on the Scala? Because this album was not made in New York. In fact, am I right to think it was made in France, some of it?
I think some of it was made in France, yeah. But I would presume they just wanted a tall building to go with
Because it's standing on the shoulders of giants.
the misquoted standing on the... I think the original title is it Sir Isaac Newton? It's standing on the shoulder. I have seen further. It is by standing on the shoulders of giants.
Okay.
And I think when Noel Gallagher saw it on the £2 coin, because he's dyslexic, he missed off the S and then called it a bum title instead of album title. So there you go.
So is he saying he didn't like the title retrospectively?
Oh, possibly. I think it's a good title for an album. I think it's
not bad. It's kind of memorable. It's okay, maybe not snappy, but it's all right. So
no, I don't think Oasis did a bad album title. Thinking about it, maybe we could do a show on rubbish album titles.
So the album, yeah, we'll think about that. But this album it came out in early 2000, so it's the first Oasis album of the 2000s. But it was recorded obviously the year before. I think it's sort of spring summer '99.
Yes.
So it's kind of like one of the last albums of the '90s. In that sense.
It is. I have said about this album a lot that this is basically the hangover. So Be Here Now was the... What's the Story? Morning Glory was the start of the night. Be Here Now was the nightclub. This is the hangover. This is waking up the next day and thinking, oh no, she was my sister. Oh God.
So yeah, I mean these all of these prominent acts of the '90s who were sort of lumped in with the whole
Britpop
cultural thing at the time. They all did a kind of come down album at the end of the '90s, didn't they? If I think about that.
Pulp did This Is Hardcore, which was very somber. I think Blur was it 13? I know it had Beatle Bum on it, but it was quite a somber. Even I think it had Song 2 as well, didn't it? But
Beatle Bum was on the Blur album, the '97.
Oh, it was. Yes, it was the orange one with the looks like one pushing a... But yeah, I think they all had hangovers, Phil. That 94 to 98 was pretty mega. And then 99 came and everybody just woke up and went, oh, God, my head really hurts. Ouchie, mama.
So this album starts off with an instrumental, which is not a first for Oasis. They'd already done the Swamp song.
Yeah.
Used it on the second album, but they kick off with this instrumental. And there's some weird vocal stuff on here. So what's it all about? What's this bloke shouting and this woman and all these people?
I think it's from the Isle of Wight Festival, early 70s.
Is it all from that?
It's all from that because I think there's a documentary about it, so you can actually see the guy who... what's the documentary? I think it's from 1970. And I think it's... what's the guy's name? Ricky Farr. I'm sure it's Ricky Farr. And to be fair, he was only in his early 20s, and I think he was a bit annoyed because obviously they'd put this festival on. I'm pretty sure there's some pretty big acts on it as well.
Yeah. Jimi Hendrix, The Who.
Yeah. And I can't remember if it was because people were breaking in for free or they were trashing the place.
There was a lot of breaking. There's a lot of breaking in went on there.
Yeah. So that's where that legendary thingy of "we put this festival on, you bastards, with a lot of love. We worked for 1 year for you pigs."
So we can't say the title of the instrumental, but it's listed as F.
Funkin' in the Bushes,
something like that, similar to that.
Yeah. Which I think Walmart refused to stock this album because of that because of that opening track.
Well, on my CD, I'm sure on my CD there's red X's over the first few letters.
Some of them did, yeah. I can safely say this is not X'd out.
Right.
So, but I think all the quotes and everything for the old lady, etc., that's all from the same documentary. And she says a line in there which I think she stole off of me, because remember when we used to do the radio show and I said, all the kids love it. They really do. They really
Yes,
do.
she says that. Yes, yeah.
Well, that was
She
before this album came out, so I wouldn't have heard that. So I think she stole it from me.
possibly did. A lot of people.
Yeah, but that's a great opening track. That just, to be fair, the rest of the album's somberish. There are parts of it, but to come in with that, I mean, it's mega.
Yeah. The only thing you could criticise about it, I suppose, is the fact that it gets off to this rocking start, and then the album doesn't perhaps live up to. Someone could argue it doesn't live up to the promise of that opening, or it's deceptive. But
A bit like What's the Frequency, Kenneth, with Monster, I suppose.
maybe the other one we were talking about the other day.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you got that. Then we go into the first single, "Who Feels Love." No, sorry, that's
Go Let It
"Go Let It
Out."
Out." Go Let It Out.
Go Let It Out, yeah. With the what's it called phrase in it about princes and kings, which it turns out that he actually took from a book, I believe. There's a book about something.
Okay.
So I think that bit in there about pawns and whatever in their sawdust rings, that comes from something else. So, yeah.
Now that
But
was.
it does include the B-side, doesn't it? It does include the B-side of Let's All Make Believe.
Oh, we're going to go. Are we going to go into the B-sides as we talk through it, or are we going to do them after, or what are we going to do?
We'll do them after. Should we do them
We'll
after?
do them
Do
after.
you want to do it as a collective?
We'll do them as a collective. So "Go Let It Out," which is it's quite Lennon-ish. It's a bit Beatley, and it's also
Beatley.
partly because it's got Mellotron on it, and it's got
It's got that mellotron, and I like that bit with the whistle,
Yeah.
and it's got that famous line in it as well. Kicking the bass.
Oh yeah, near the start. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I liked a few of those because I think in Heathen Chemistry, it's got. I think is it Force of Nature? He gives it the big in one.
You see, you are an Oasis geek. I can't remember all those details about them, but "Go Let It Out," quite Beatley, and a bit of a nod to Strawberry Fields Forever with some of that instrumentation. And then we're into "Who Feels Love," which is that the most 60s style track that Oasis ever did?
I think so. Yeah, it's quite psychedelic. It's very George Harrison-esque, would you say?
Yeah, it reminds me away in terms of its style and sound. Cooler Shaker did something like that a few years before.
Yeah, with like
Govinda,
yeah.
So it's very. I mean, I quite like it. I think it's quite groovy. It's got quite a
trippy feel.
It's hypnotic, I think, is the way I would describe it.
No. I think
like
on Wikipedia, other sites are available. They said it's they wanted to make it feel trippy to sound a little bit like the Beatles' "Rain." I think is what they wrote on there. So with a psychedelic Eastern sound, it is a little bit George Harrison within or without you, or whatever. Within or without you, isn't it? Yeah, within you,
within you,
you.
Within you, without you.
That's the one. I'm glad you're here, Phil. Yeah.
There is a droning quality to it as well, which is came from
Now
Indian stuff.
I liked this when it first came out. Then I didn't like it for a long time. And in the last few months, and I think it's actually really good. So I'm actually back in love with this song. It was just like a little bit. Thank you for the sun. That line there.
Yeah, you thought that was a bit naff. Yeah,
a bit naff. Yeah, but now I've become older, and like my taste buds have matured, so have my ears. That I'm sampling those flavours of that Eastern delight in the old sound cannons, and I actually like it a lot more than I did. It was the one song on the album where I was like, I could easily skip that, but I've fallen back in love with it, Phil.
That's good to know. I must admit, I've never disliked it, but it's one of those that the more you listen to it, maybe it kind of can grow on you a bit. But now this album is sonically quite a departure from those first three Oasis albums, which I think were all produced by Owen Morris. Am I right to think that?
Yeah, and this was done by Mark Spike Stent.
Now, where did he come from? What had he done before that?
I think. Oh, no, he'd done stuff with Madonna. He'd done stuff with Madonna. Gwen. I know he'd worked with Bjork. I don't know whether that was before or after this. I know he's done stuff with Tell you what he did. Mezzanine by Massive Attack.
Okay.
And he'd worked with Manson and Depeche Mode, and I'm pretty sure it's one of those 3-letter bands. It's either EMF or the KLF. I think it was KLF. He worked with them as well. But I know he's worked with Madonna since. I think the Spice Girls as well.
Okay, so he's done a bit of pop, but he's worked with some of these. He's done things like Massive Attack. Was the Massive Attack thing the thing that Noel Gallagher was going for, that something of that, a bit more of that sound, bring it in?
Yeah, because that trip hop is quite an encapsulating sound, isn't it? Whenever you put a trip hop album in, I've got into Portishead and stuff like that. When you put it on, it's almost like it surrounds you like a nice bubble.
Yeah, I must say that I've always quite liked this album. I have listened to this album a fair bit, and I always quite liked it. I could see why it was seen by some people as a letdown, or didn't like it as much as the early stuff. But I do. One of the things I do like about it is the production sound. It kind of works. I'm not saying that Oasis should always sound like this, but I thought it was an interesting project to have them sound and set them in this sort of soundscape. I liked it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's a much deeper sound. You're not sort of, it's not got that. Well, there are, I suppose, I Can See a Liar's got that sort of punkiness of Definitely Maybe, and there are a few tracks, I suppose, which could be classed as quite Morning Glory. I suppose Go Let It Out could have quite easily been of those sessions.
Yeah, that's next up on the track list. What's your view of Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is?
Well, I revisited this album, didn't I? And I did my I substituted a couple of tracks for B-sides, and this was one of the tracks that was substituted out. It could quite easily have been one of those 3 B-sides. I can't remember what they were, Carry Us All or Full On.
This is your reimagined version of the album.
Yeah, it's my reimagined version, and the other one was
One Way Road.
Believe. One Way Road, I put that as a bonus track.
Right,
that was a bonus track.
We'll have to put this in the comments. We'll link to Ben's reimagined version of the album in the comments.
But it's a good punky little song. Probably goes on a little bit longer than it should do. But I only removed it out of there because I think the other songs worked better. I think they're better songs. But
yeah, I've always quite. Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is a bit weak lyrically, and some people have described it as half finished. I can kind of sort of see what they mean, but I've always quite enjoyed it, and it kind of reminds me of Roadhouse Blues by The Doors. That's the track that it reminds me of. But it's just got quite a good Liam rocking vocal on it, and it's just got a bit of a, I don't know, I just like the way it chugs along. I quite like it, but I'm not trying to make out that it's great. I just like it.
Yeah. No, like I say, I don't dislike any of the songs on this album. I think if you're an Oasis fan, you're going to like them all anyway. But yeah, Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is. It's what was it? Put your money where your mouth is, and your hands upon the wheel. Or
hands upon the wheel, or something. Yeah.
It's
sort of It's it does feel a bit half formed lyrically, but I still quite enjoy it. The next song is a sort of a milestone in Oasis history, because this is the first Liam Gallagher composition.
And I think the first non-Noel written song on an Oasis album.
Little James.
Which got panned. It was classed as the worst song they've ever done, the worst song on the album. I actually quite like the simplicity of the rhyming couplets. I quite like, I think it's about Jim Kerr and Patsy Kensit's son, wasn't it?
So Liam was the kind of stepdad to him.
Yeah, and I like the kind of psychedelicness of it. It's actually not it's probably a the precursor to what Songbird and stuff like that. But I think it's a good, if you can avoid Little James, We're All the Same, the sort of simplicity of the lyrics, and just listen to the music side of it. The music side of it, it's actually really, really good. But I quite like that. I did substitute this out. I think I substituted out for Full On or Carry Us All. but I think this gets panned more than it should do.
Is it because when rock stars start writing songs about their young children, that scene that they've lost their edge? They've gone middle-aged, and I'm not sure who was the first rock star to do this. I remember John Lennon did it, of course, with his song "Beautiful Boy."
Well, Paul McCartney wrote "Hey Jude" about.
Oh, that was kind of a Julian Lennon inspired, yeah. But there wasn't quite so much a song about a child directly, but Paul did do some nursery rhymes for his kids, and he Mary had a little lamb and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So this is Liam going soft. Not that he has really, but
no,
it's okay. To me, it's kind of a filler. It's a filler, but it's okay. I don't. It doesn't make me want to skip over it. I don't think it's awful.
No. I think if you listen to the backbeat, as it were,
it has a charm. There's a charm, and there is a sincerity behind it, which stops it from being. And
awful.
It isn't too syrupy. He's just sort of doing it straight. Really, he's not.
Yeah. I mean, if Michael Bublé did this, then it would be full on syrup.
It could be a bit smarmy, yeah.
Yeah.
So Liam's got away with it. He's done a little child song, and he's got away with it. And is that the end of side 1 on the vinyl?
Shall I have a look? Because I've got
have
one
a look.
Here.
And I think that's 5 tracks.
That is the end of side 1, young Phil.
So side 2 kicks off with this a track which is, again, it's unlike anything really Oasis had done before. That's Gas Panic.
Yeah, well, this was the song that they used. The whole that whole sort of gas work sort of. When this album was being released on Oasis.net, I think their website was at the time. This was the backing track that had all the sort of the promo stuff coming to it. So I love this track. Like I say, it's something completely different. I think it's about Noel's sort of, even though he does flippantly say he gave drugs up, but I think it's about one night about having panic attacks or anxiety attacks after going cold turkey of cocaine, etc. But it's just got some lyrically. I love the lyrics to it as well. I think it's brilliant. My family don't seem so familiar.
That's
and
right.
My enemies all know my name. And if you hear me tap on your window, you better get on your knees and pray, because panic, Philip, is on the way.
This is where really they'd kind of got this. To me, is the album where Oasis had definitely separated from writing these kind of stadium anthems that were going to be massive hits across, that would be mass popular, and they were doing more songs like this, which to me are more like sort of classic rock album tracks that not everybody's going to like.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the first album where Noel says about this album, the songs weren't there, the lyrics were rubbish, but he does say that he wrote it for himself in a way.
Yeah.
So you can't fault the man for doing that, can you? He's just given us 3 of the most iconic albums of a generation, so he's allowed to do what he wants, I suppose.
So that's Gas Panic. I can't think that it reminds me of a particular classic rock band or anything like that. But when you mention those sound effects, thinking about that, now you're mentioning that Stent had produced Mezzanine by Massive Attack. I'm thinking there's a kind of a similar,
there's definitely
similar sound there.
Very much a trip hoppy sort of sound, and Liam's vocal on it is very, very good.
Top notch vocal. So what's the next track? That's track 6. Track 7 is
Where Did It All Go Wrong? Where did it all go wrong? Yeah.
Well, I think on this song it all goes right, because I think this is a really excellent track. I always have done from when I first heard it.
Well, a lot of people said this is where the album went wrong because of these 2 Noel back-to-back tracks. But Noel hates the next track, and he doesn't really like this one either, but I do really like Where Did It All Go Wrong.
Now,
this was originally going to be the album title as well.
Okay. Yeah, which would have been a sort of a commentary on their fame and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really good track. I have read reviews and comments saying that it's kind of that it's too middle of the road or whatever. But I just think it was a powerful song, and it was clearly there's something real behind the emotions in this song, and it seems to be linked into the breakdown of his marriage at the time. Surely that's what it's about.
I think he's even said it's autobiographical. Is that a word? Autobiographical?
Autobiographical.
Autobiographical.
But yeah, I mean,
I've just made up a new word. I'm a genius.
You often do that. Yeah. We need to expand the OED really, but that's the Oxford English Dictionary for anyone outside the UK. But yeah. So where did it all go wrong? I think it goes right. I don't know what else I can say about that song, but I think it's really good. But then it goes into, as you say, another Noel song, and this is even more. It's not quite so emotionally wrought, but it's quite downbeat.
Yeah. This is the one with the video, which was basically a play on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But he says this is the one Oasis song he wishes he'd never written.
Sunday Morning Call. It's not bad.
No, I quite like Sunday Morning Call.
Yeah, it's a good ballad.
And it was a single as well, so they couldn't have thought. Here's another Sunday morning call.
Yeah, I don't see why.
The lyrics are awful.
Really? I don't think they're bad. They're okay, aren't they?
Yeah,
I can't think there's anything bad. I can't think there's any clunkers in this lyrically.
No, well, when Mr. Gallagher does slag off his own tracks, I do go back to him and listen to him and sort of. I mean, it's different. I suppose if you've wrote it, I think we've discussed it before. Nothing's ever. You never hear it how you wanted it to sound because it's like your own voice. My voice is awful. I'm okay with that now. I can live with that. But in my head, when I'm talking, I sound mega. Sound amazing. And I suppose it's like with these things in your head, though, when he was probably writing it, it's like, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And then when he's recording, it's, I can't get it right. It's not what I want, but it will do. And
there is that.
I think it's quite another thoughtful track. I think of quite a,
Well, sometimes artists turn against their songs because they came out of certain feelings or certain times in their life, which they then perhaps weren't great times. So they perhaps have a different view of it afterwards. But it doesn't really matter if he's dissed it. I mean, John Lennon dissed quite a lot of his own stuff, and it doesn't mean it was bad. So let's not.
No. I suppose the layman in the street, like me and thee, we couldn't probably put together something like that. So but I think on. It wasn't Stop the Clocks. What was the one in 2009? Time Flies, the triple CD album when that came out. This was on there. But I don't think it's listed on the back. It's actually a hidden track on the end of one of the discs. So he disliked it that much, he even hid it away.
He hid it, yeah. That's the compilation that he actually compiled, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's Sunday Morning Call. Then we're into the song that has got a lyrical clunker.
Oh, yes. The next one definitely
I Can See a Liar, Standing by the Fire.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I said this before, to me, Noel Gallagher did lyrics which he knew he was taking lines from other things and he was ripping things off, and he knew it. And he also wrote some rhymes where he just thought of a rhyme and thought that'll do. And he kind of knew that he hadn't spent a lot of time working out some wonderful poetry. Yeah. And he didn't really care. And this, to me, is what I like about this is that there's a knowing element between him and his listeners, because he knows that that's rubbish, but he's saying, I know that you know that this is rubbish, and I know it as well.
Deep down, he's going.
I'm putting it in there anyway.
Yeah, deep down, he knows that somebody at Pitchfork or someone is losing their mind, going, "Oh God, he's put this lyric in. What's going on? How can anybody rhyme liar with fire?"
It's basically liar pants on fire. I mean, it's basically that, isn't it? So
basically.
Now, what I would say to anyone who's still not convinced about the charms of this track, you've got to go onto YouTube. I must remember to put a link to this as well in the comments, because I think there's still a YouTube video of this. When they appeared on American TV, it was, I believe, the David Letterman Show.
It was, yeah.
And I think they're plugged in live, aren't they, performing
They
it?
are, yeah.
And it rocks.
It's really, really good. And that actually made me feel bad for ejecting this track from my revised version. And I only took it out because I just thought lyrically Full On was better. But the more I do think about it, the more you know that when Noel Gallagher wrote I Can See a Liar Standing by the Fire, he was just like, yeah, I know. What are you going to do? You know?
And so to the closing track, which is another one that's sort of not had a lot of love over the years, but then it's come back live, because I believe Liam Gallagher performs this at his concerts.
Does. He did it at Nebworth last year, and I really, really... To me, this Roll It Over is the ultimate hangover song. That is literally... But if any other band wrote this track, and I suppose I could say this about every track on this album, that everybody would be going, oh, that's brilliant. But because it wasn't Champagne Supernova,
Yeah.
that's... Once you've set the bar that high, unless you're hitting it every time, I mean...
You know, people are going to be disappointed.
The Beatles did Octopus's Garden, for God's sake, so you're not going to hit it every time.
I do love Octopus's Garden.
Yeah, so do I. That was a bad choice of Beatles songs. I should have gone for something else. Don't send me your hate mail. But I think as an album closer, it's really, really good. And when Liam did it last year, I didn't know what his set list was going to be. It was a really good... It was like, oh, God, I can... And the lyrics to it are quite, you know, come and sit with me around my table and never bring a chair. It's all about the hangers-on and, you know...
There's a definite audible Beatles reference in this one as well, because somewhere in it there's a guitar part which is more or less lifted or quoted from the tail end of "Come Together" by the Beatles.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And that's got to be deliberate, hasn't it? That one, I think.
I would say so. Yeah, definitely.
And there's is it me, or is there a little bit of a kind of a sort of a later Pink Floyd feel to this track? Or is that
I
just
would say
me
there's a lot of Pink Floyd feel to a lot of these tracks, and some, a lot of what
Gas Panic is a little bit kind of that way as well. There's a
Floydy,
bit more, maybe a bit of a prog rock or a sort of a 70s influence. So that's Rolled It Over, and that brings the album to a 6-minute close, I think.
6 minutes 30 seconds, Philip.
Yeah. So that is Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. So how do you rate it to the first three Oasis? How do you compare it?
It's difficult because it's a different kind of album. Yeah. It's almost like Oasis Mark II. You know,
I get that.
If you had a Ford Fiesta Mark I XR2 and you saw somebody with a Mark II Ford Fiesta XR2, you'd be going, it's just a reasonably fast biscuit tin. This is the one you want, you know, because that's what we all grew up with. That's what that 90s was built on, was that Be Here Now, the anticipation for that, the monster that was Morning Glory and the punk rawness of Definitely Maybe.
Yeah.
And this, it's hard. This, once again, it's like judging your favourite puppy. It's hard to put it in my list of favourite Oasis albums in a way, because they're all slightly different, and I class this as a different era. And I don't know, it's difficult because it's somber. It isn't banger after banger, as the kids would say, but it's a nice, thoughtful album. And like you say, sonically, it's quite a delight, man. I mean, it's just so good on the ears.
I do find it a satisfying listen. And I don't know how to rank it with the other ones, but then we don't have to. That's the great thing. This whole ranking of music is not really, it's not real. You don't have to do that. You can enjoy all these records. Shall we delve into the B-sides? Because I think
let's do it, Phil. Let's flip them over.
Now, the thing about, I'd just forgotten until I dug these out. When this album came out, they released 3 singles in the UK.
And it was the first one that they'd only released 3 singles from as well.
Yeah.
And was this around the time the charts had changed, where you couldn't have, I can't get my fingers right, and you couldn't have 4 tracks on a single?
Yeah. I mean, for our viewers in North America and around the world, I'm not quite sure what the situation is over there, but when Oasis first appeared and made their first couple of albums, every single that came out, every CD single, had 4 tracks on it. So
it was almost like an EP, wasn't it?
You got the A side that had been on the album, but you usually got 3 songs that were not on an album. So you got great value for money. Now, the people who compile the charts in the UK brought in a rule that you couldn't have more than 3 tracks on a CD single, or something like that.
Stupid people.
Something like that. Because I think they thought that some records had an unfair advantage because they had more tracks on or whatever. Anyway, look at that. You've got
I do love that.
it's really cool.
I do love that.
It's like the 3-inch CD. They did make some 3-inch CDs in the early days, for singles. That were actually
the mini disc.
They were actually small because that on a lot of CD players you've got an inner, a 3-inch inner on your tray where you put the disc in. You could put a 3-inch disc, but they made this as a perspex on the outside, which is kind of cool. So
I do like that. I do like that with the CD singles.
So Go Let It Out had this B-side called Let's All Make Believe, which is a ballad sung by Liam.
Yeah.
And, I mean, many people have suggested that this should have been on the album.
Yeah. But I think Noel left it off in order to keep the singer happy, I think was one of his phrases.
Okay.
Because he wanted to sing Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is. I think that's...
Right, okay. So Liam wanted to sing the other songs, so this went on the B. So this is kind of like, for this album, this is, to me, is like the master plan for What's the Story, Morning Glory, this sort of great ballad track that really, you think, how could it be hidden away on the B-side?
Yeah, well, I think in Q Magazine did the 500 hidden gems or unheard tracks and this came number 1, this track did.
Okay, the top hidden gem.
So this was like the top hidden track. It's a great lyric, quite somber, quite slow, but it's quite poignant.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I won't sing it because I don't want to ruin it.
Thanks for that.
That's okay.
The other track on here, which is sung by Noel, it's not quite as great, but it's still pretty good.
As long as they've got cigarettes in hell.
As long as they got cigarettes in hell.
And hasn't it got that pseudo sort of like
I think
somebody smoking a cigarette in it?
Something like that.
Yeah, I do like this track. It's another one. Those 2 B-sides, they work well together, to be fair.
Now, the Who Feels Love single has got a track on called One Way Road.
It has, which another great track.
This is another. I mean, most of these B-sides are Noel vocals. That's how do you describe it? Is that the one that's got all the bird noises, the nature noises on it?
Yeah. I'm sure it's one that goes like a one-man band clapping in the pouring rain. I don't know where I'm coming, but I don't know.
That's Carry Us. Isn't that Carry Us All?
Okay. In summertime. I don't know. I might be getting the songs wrong here.
I think you might be
all alone on a one-way road. Oh no, I am getting them wrong. Yeah, but Paul Weller covered this, I think, on Studio 53 or whatever the album was called.
Okay, so it is good. I do think that's a good Noel B-side. The other track on here is the cover from these sessions. There's always a cover, isn't there? And this is Helter Skelter by the Beatles.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Is Noel on lyrics? Is Noel on vocals?
He's singing that, yeah.
I think it would have been better with Liam on vocals. I think there is a version. I think there is a version of it on the internet because I think they did record both versions, but this was the one that got released. So I think it would sound better. I think Noel's voice sounds a little bit strained in parts of it.
Yeah. Was Helter Skelter also performed on the Familiar to Millions live album? at Wembley?
No, that was Hey Hey My My.
Okay. Right, yeah. Okay, that's the Neil Young cover.
Yeah.
So it wasn't done. So it's it's not as successful as I Am the Walrus, let's put it that way. I think it's fair to
No,
say.
it's not as well remembered, I wouldn't say, but it's still quite punchy, quite punky.
It's not
Like I
bad.
said, yeah, I just think Noel's vocal sort of, I don't know, it just sounds a bit odd. You don't sort of associate him with those sort of punchy, punky tracks.
Now the thing about these CD singles is that this was the year 2000.
It was.
But we weren't still fully into the 21st century, because in each of these singles you got a Oasis card to fill in your details and post it off
I've
to
got
get
many of them.
get more information about the band.
Alverson Place, Leamington Spa.
Yeah, that's the address. So
I wonder if you send it off now, whether you get any
I
response.
wonder if we get any information about Oasis now.
Yeah.
So this was definitely the pre-internet era. Now, I don't know which of these CD singles is the strongest. I think it probably is Go Let It Out, simply because it's got Let's All Make Believe on it. But this
I would say so.
But this isn't a bad one either. Sunday Morning Call has got Carry Us All.
And Full On.
And Full On. Again, Noel sings both songs.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
But again, Carry Us All could have been on the album, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's the one with that nice little... The
one about no one's going to sing in a 2-bit revolution or something like that.
Yeah, because a faith in any God is going to carry us all, or something along those lines.
And then Full On is kind of a full on rock song.
Yeah, I can imagine he probably recorded that back to back with Helter Skelter.
Why did Liam not sing Full On? Because the lyric of that, this is going to be full on, that needs Liam singing that, doesn't it, really?
It does, yeah. It's another one of those ones where I think Noel's voice doesn't suit the track, but I do like the track anyway. Even with Noel singing it, it's still really good. And I bet there is a version of it with Liam singing it.
Well, for me, that could have been a great... because the chorus about this is going to be full on. That could have been the opening track on the album with a Liam vocal.
It could have been. And is this the only Oasis release I don't know about anywhere else, but in the UK, that doesn't have Liam on vocal on any track?
You're probably right, because it's Sunday Morning Call is also sung by Noel.
Yeah, three Noel tracks. Because even Don't Look Back in Anger, which was Noel, had the B-sides. Well, it had Come On, Feel the Noise.
At the Slade
which
song,
had Liam on vocal. So this could be the first. Maybe this was just a sign of what was to come 9 years later.
Yeah.
But 3 good singles and some really good B-sides, I think, in there.
So the question is, what do you think of Standing on the Shoulders of Giants? Are we right to have fond feelings about this album, or should we get over it and slag it off, or should we do something else? I don't know. Whatever you think. Tell us what you think of the album. We'd like to know.
I think, and I'll have my 2 pennies worth here. I get comfortable. It is a far better album than what it was rated at the time. I think people just got on this bandwagon of I think they'd reached the top of the mountain and people like hitting them on the way down. But I think sonically, music, there's a few throwaway lyrics, but you know that Noel sort of just go, this is all I've got, man. But it's still better than what you can do. And I just think that retrospectively, it's a very fine piece of work. Backed up by those excellent B-sides as well from the singles.
Yeah, the other question we've got is, could you reimagine this album using some of those B-sides? Could you make your own 10-track album and improve it? Ben's done an improved version. I'll stick mine on there as well, and we'll see what you think of that, and we'll look forward to seeing whether you've got a even better listening experience standing on the shoulders of the giant that this album. It was a big seller. It was. I think it sold 300,000 copies in the first week or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was something like the 16th fastest selling album in UK history in its first week of sales. I'm pretty sure it was something like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I can have a look because I've got
Have a look.
it. It sold. Here we go, Phil. Because I've just brought it up. It sold 55,000 units in its first week in America, and it sold. I think it was 300 odd thousand. Was it 310,000? I'm pretty sure it's around that number. I can't find it. I should have been more prepared. But here we go. It is the 16th fastest selling album in UK chart history, selling over 310,000 copies in its first week, which is pretty mammoth, really.
Well, if you're in the US or Canada, we'd be interested to hear what you think of this record and what you think of Oasis, because as I understand it, the story we had in Britain, what we knew in Britain was Oasis were superstar level in this country in the 90s. They were being written about in the newspapers, they were on TV, they were massive celebrities, Noel and Liam particularly. And the story was that they'd never broken America. They'd never had the success in North America of the other British groups of the past. So because they hadn't done what the Beatles and the Stones and Zeppelin did, they'd failed.
Tour extensively. And they weren't Bush.
So, but I do think that obviously that music fans in North America who know their stuff were aware of Oasis, and they do have a lot of fans over there. But I guess there's probably also a lot of people who haven't heard of them. You know, your average person in the street may not know who they are. So,
and also, I'll cut you off there, Phil. You finish what you were going to say.
Well, I say the average person in the street. You stop someone in the street in the US or Canada and say Oasis. A lot of people perhaps haven't heard of them, but obviously the music fans have. So we'd like that perspective. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. I was going to say, and also this album is what spawned the tour that became familiar to millions, and that legendary. I was at the first night at Wembley. That was mega. I'll probably say that's up there, one of my best concerts I've ever been to. The second night was the one that was broadcast live on Sky Television.
I remember watching that. Yeah.
And Liam was on full meltdown. He was singing the day before. He was his voice, everything was spot on, but I think he got rather drunk that night, and he was going on about tea bags. And
so the night that you saw, sorry to interrupt, the night you saw, is that the one that came out on the live album?
A lot of it is off of that album, but a lot of those tracks as well, I don't think are from Wembley. They're from gigs in Japan.
Really?
And I mean, rumor has it that Liam knew it was being recorded for the CD, so it was purposely trying to sabotage it, because he doesn't sing parts of songs, and then he just sings whatever he wants, and then starts baiting the crowd, etc. You couldn't have got any more chalk and cheese between two gigs. It was literally yin and yang, night and day, between those two gigs. And
right.
I mean, as an Oasis fan, I watched it and I just thought, this is epic. You know, he's just a rock star being a rock star. But you can't forget that 80,000 people paid their money. And I suppose a lot of it is just so you can go, I was at that gig. So I suppose in a way, it doesn't really matter. I suppose people still had a good time, and the Happy Mondays and Doves were supporting as well. So really good sort of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this album for 48 minutes, which is more or less the amount of time it takes to listen to it. So if you listen to us talk for 48 minutes, then surely you can go and listen to this album for 48 minutes, because it's a lot more entertaining. So go and do that again. Revise your view of Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. See if there's any songs that you didn't used to like, which you now love, as is the case with Ben and Who Feels Love.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks for feeding the love. This has been Full Record Jacket. I'm Phil.
That's Ben. And me.
Join us for another one next time. Thank you for watching.
Subscribe.
All the best.